Peace, how you doing? Today, hope all is well with you, first of all. Today I'm going to be talking about the necessity of, one, American citizens are going to have to embrace the spirit of entrepreneurism. Two, learn coding for real. And three, be prepared for the technocracy. We'll start with the technocracy and work back. So what you keep hearing on the news networks all across the nation, your ABCs, your NBCs, your MSNs, your CNNs and MSNBCs and all of that, CBS, Fox, is this. And that's, Americans are resigning and leaving jobs by the millions, right? That's what you're hearing. You're hearing that the American citizens are leaving their jobs and resigning and quitting by the millions. And what you have to look at is, one, a lot of them, the majority of the millions, are not leaving because they desire to. Many and most are leaving due to the mandate that is in place right now. Now, however you choose to, play your card, whether you're pro or anti, individuals have the right to make the decision, and individuals it's their God-given right, their inalienable rights to have autonomy over their physiological body and what goes in, what goes out. Definitely what goes in. People have that choice. You can't tell people to put things in their body. But now, it's come to the point where, hey, they have put people's livelihood and earning potentials on the chopping block if you don't follow the mandate, if you do not comply to the mandate, right? If you don't get juiced up, then you will lose your employment. And with that, people will be losing homes, they'll be losing mortgages, falling behind on rent, so they'll be facing evictions, we'll be seeing foreclosures, you'll have families, children, it's going to be a very destabilizing move that has been made. And I don't think that it was made with a 360-degree circumspect analysis of how this truly impacts American citizens. Right? Now, with that said, millions of people are not complying with the mandate, not because they want to see the pandemic spread, not because they want other people to get sick, but it's two things. One, people are not sure of the long-term side effects or adverse drug reactions to this rapidly developed juice that they are mandating people get. We've seen this in history. We've seen those that understand what happened with thalidomide. Thalidomide this is where you had the whole Kefauver-Harris Act and the Kefauver-Harris Amendment. So you had thalidomide, which was a non-barbiturate antidepressant, right? Sedative. And what happened was they found that it had use and utility in the fact that it suppresses morning sickness in pregnant women. They found that it really helped control morning sickness in pregnant women. Now, our current standards is that a drug has to be safe and effective. Safe, meaning doing no harm, and effective, meaning it accomplishes the task that it's supposed to do. Now, they found that it was effective in the fact that, look, it's intended to stop and control morning sickness in pregnant women, and it does that job. Effective, yes. Did they find out that it was necessarily safe before widespread use? No. What they did was blindly say that thalidomide is safe to use. All of a sudden, it became an international hit. Spread all across the globe. People taking thalidomide. All these pregnant women taking thalidomide to control their morning sickness. What happened? So many months after that widespread approval, so many months and so many years after that, they started noticing that children were being born with a condition called phocomelia, in which their limbs, instead of having full arms, imagine your arms being shortened so that your hands probably start at where your shoulder joint is, and your limbs are extremely shortened and disjointed. So you had babies being born that looked like dolphins, where their arms and hands were like that. And they couldn't figure out what it was, so they finally figured out, oh, this thalidomide that we've been prescribing worldwide, it is the culprit. That is what's causing phocomelia. They had to immediately stop prescribing that for pregnant women and call it unsafe. So you had people that were working in the FDA at the time, I forget their first names, but this is where you had Kefauver was one of them, and you had Harris. They said, you know what? From here on in, every drug that gets approved by the FDA, it must pass the rigorous standards of testing and clinical trials to prove that the drug is two things: safe and effective. Safe meaning it is not going to do any physiological, biological harm to the patient that is prescribed to and administered to. And effective meaning it is going to accomplish the physiological, biological task that people are taking the medication for. If the medication is for migraines, it is effective in stopping and preventing migraines, and it should be safe, right? So that's the Kefauver-Harris Act, and that's the history behind thalidomide, and that shows you why why clinical trials and clinical investigations had to happen over years. Rigorous testing, peer reviews, testing on animals, then testing on humans, and test on top of tests to prove safety and effectiveness. So, this is happening to so many different drugs. There was a drug in the early 2000s called Xigris, Xigris, also known as Drotrecagen alpha. Xigris was a recombinant form of a molecule that we have in the body called protein C. Xigris was approved by the FDA for reducing mortality and sepsis in patients that have sepsis. So it was approved by the FDA, saying that was effective in reducing mortality in patients that have sepsis. Right? Xigris, then 10 years later, was pulled off the market because they found that Xigris, what? It did not reduce mortality in patients that had sepsis. So that makes you go, now how did that happen? How did a drug somehow meet the standards for being effective? You said that you approved it because it reduced mortality in patients that were septic. But then 10 years later, you pull it off the market and discontinue it for manufacturing. You pull its FDA license because it does exactly the opposite. It does not prevent mortality in patients that are septic. So for 10 years, you had this drug on the market that was supposed to be doing something that it was not doing. So these are the things that I think people are skeptical or reluctant, have hesitation and reservations about when it comes to this mandate. It's not that people don't want to or just refusing just to refuse. People, for this drug to be developed so rapidly within 9 months, and you have no long-term studies, what are the 5 and 10-year effects of this? You don't have those results. You don't have those. We are the study subjects. We are the study subjects. You just developed this in 9 months, so you will be monitoring us so that over the next 10 years, you say, hey, this is the 10-year data, the long-term side effects of this. People are hesitant to juggle and risk their lives for that. And people have their right and their will to do that. But now you've tied that to their ability to earn an income. People have went to college and taken up secondary degrees, masters, doctors, doctoral, some went to professional schools like medical school where they had to get their residencies and fellowships. So all these extra years of student loans, all these extra years of, nursing and things like this. They pursued these professions with a passion. And you have to take these board exams. And your license, when you can prove and pass the test that you are proficient to practice. You've earned that degree and have proven that you're proficient to practice because you passed these boards and you've taken all this secondary training and testing. Now, you're telling these people, not because you're deficient and not because you lack the intelligence and not because you're not skillful, you can't practice, but because you don't want to put something in your body, you can't practice. That's wrong. That's wrong. Now, what's happening is they're saying because people are hesitant to get this mandate that they are, anti, XYZ. They're labeling them, and you're seeing a mass exodus out the system. So they're saying, there's millions of Americans that are out. Millions of Americans leaving the workforce. But the backstory, they don't give the backstory completely. They don't try to explain, they don't try to empathize or anything like that. It's just comply or fly, which is sad. Now, what the next thing is this. People are going to have to start running their own businesses to sustain themselves and their families, to keep up with the expenses of student loans and credit card debt and car loans, child care, all the different expenses that accumulate on the average American citizen in this current day society. You're going to have to become an entrepreneur. It's going to be mandatory. And you're going to have to learn to code, because the next thing is what they're going to do to fill all these millions of jobs is now we're going to incorporate robotics, software, automation, and artificial intelligence. This is where they're going to lean on that balance, not balance, but that bond and connection between the technological sector of the American economy. All your MITs, all your DARPA, all of these people that work in labs and all this type of stuff that create robotics and automation and software and artificial intelligence, they're going to be looking to replace the American labor force that has participated in this mass exodus. They're going to be using robots and artificial intelligence, automation software to replace you. And they're going to justify it because, see, with that, it goes back to a prior blog that I did. They're going to have at least 10 reasons of why they should. Because one, once they pay for that automation or software, it is what it is. They have it now. It's not like they have to pay that a human person a bi-weekly check. Nope. Once I got that robot, the only thing I may do is just buy updates and an insurance policy on it in case it happens to break. But once they got it, they got it. Two, robots, automation, artificial intelligence software does not call in late to a job. It's on site at all times. Three, unlike humans, robots, artificial intelligence, software, automation does not get pregnant, so it doesn't need pregnancy leave. 3, 4, you don't have to pay all of the expenses and match 401k or 403b contributions. You don't have to pay for supplemental life insurance and health insurance coverage and flexible spending, all this type of stuff that the average human worker will do. Number 5, you don't have to deal with labor unions and collective bargainers that fight for employee rights, whereas the employer versus the employee in a labor union. Excuse me. 6, humans do steal. You have employees that will come to work and will take things from the job and bring it home. A robot, artificial intelligence, software, automation, it's not stealing anything. 7, you don't have to pay any holidays to a robot or anything. Whereas you have to pay holidays and balance, who's taking off on this day and that day. 8, you don't have to worry about sexual harassment lawsuits. Whereas, you dealing with an employee that could sink your whole corporation's battleship because they can't control their sexual desires and urges, and, they compromise a company and corporation's integrity because of a sexual harassment lawsuit. 9, don't have to worry about religious issues, religion in the workplace, and things like that. A robot doesn't have any religion. 10, what? You don't have to worry about insubordination or somebody sabotaging and whistleblowing. So insubordination, sabotage, and whistleblowing, that's not something you have to worry about with robots, automation, software, and artificial intelligence. Whereas, yeah, you do have to worry about your whistleblowers and, your Eric Snowdens, and granted, they may have their legitimate reasons why they did what they did, but you don't have to worry about, your Eric Snowdens and people that decide they want to usurp authority. It's like that. And so now corporations are looking at these millions of people that have exited the labor sector as, hey, look, you know what, you guys really were just expenses. Like, yeah, you were necessary, but I think now we don't even need to outsource to other countries. We'll insource with these robotics, artificial software intelligence, and things like that. So this is what the American population is going to be dealing with. And we're in some very, very, very interesting, fragile, and trying times, very precarious times. Americans are going to have to really, really do their best to tread water and see how they're going to navigate and operate and move in this current society, because we're moving towards that technocracy, whether you like it or not. We are moving into that technocracy. You can see it all over the place. But anyway, that's for another story. Anyway, just wanted to drop that off on y'all, and we'll talk later. Peace.